Hey guys, welcome back to the HYM podcast. It's only me and Jake here today hosting because I believe Nick's off being a vet for the afternoon, Jake.
Yeah, he's decided he needs to go and look after a horse, and I'm not joking about that.
So it's me and Jake hosting this one, but so we'll see how it goes. Hopefully,
it's no offense to our guest that Nick isn't here. It's not like he just didn't want to speak to him.
Well, it's not what he told us over the group chat, but we'll.
So where are you nowadays? Because you've been back and forth a little bit over the past few months.
Yes, so been back and forth to Spain a little bit, which has cost me an arm and a leg in COVID tests, but I think we're going to try and get a lawsuit together to try and get some money back for all the COVID tests we've been having and the assault on my nasal cavity.
Well, that's why we need the views from this podcast.
Well, exactly.
COVID test.
I know, mate. It's ridiculous. But yeah, no, spent the last few days up in Barcelona at Montmello, working with the Superbike guys and a bit of filming. So that's been really good. And getting back on the training bike on the Supermoto a bit, which has been good, riding well. And then plans are coming together for this year still. Bit of delay, but to be honest, I'm really excited to tell everybody what's going on with this year because it's a really exciting project. But all good.
It needs to be soon because I can't keep secret much longer.
I know. We'll get round to it. To it. Small delays. But what about you? What have you been up to?
Oh, mate, I've just been driving simulator as usual. 3 different simulator jobs now, so I'm a pro at that. Without being a pro on the real track, so that's shaming nowadays. But no, I went karting on Tuesday actually.
Oh yeah, it was good.
If people follow my Instagram, they would have seen a little bit. But that was good. We'll have a video hopefully about that out soon.
Yep.
But yeah,
you won't. And if the guys listen to this, if you haven't checked out the Seb Morris episode, go down below. Episode number 1, Seb Morris, and that's who Jake was karting with the other day, and you can learn all about Seb's amazing career.
You don't want to miss
racing.
that. He's a special character, Seb.
Reality TV superstar.
Yeah, so exactly.
Go check it out.
And today's guest is not a reality TV superstar.
Still a superstar.
Not a falling star like maybe BRDC.
No.
But he's just come off the back of his first F2 race weekend of the year. So here to talk about that. Ferrari Academy Junior driver. I think is that the name? Marcus. We'll introduce you like this.
Ferrari Driver Academy driver. Is that what you said?
Ferrari Academy Junior driver.
Driver.
That'll do, mate.
Yeah. Marcus Armstrong. How you doing?
Yeah, thanks for having me on, boys. It's good to be here.
So whereabouts are you? You in Italy?
Yep. Just got back to Italy after so much time in Bahrain. Could almost call that my second home now.
Did you have to stay out there in between the test and the race?
No, but we obviously had the test there, and then there was the F1 test straight after, which me and a couple other guys stayed out for, and then we came back for a bit, and then we had to go out for the race weekend, and then they obviously had the Pirelli test straight after the race, so I had to spend a bunch of time there, which is cool because the hotel that we stay at is pretty mint, so I'm not complaining, but and also the weather was pretty good, so yeah, it was good.
You didn't manage to get in the car then for the test?
Unfortunately not. None of the official drivers caught COVID, so
yeah,
it was me on the sidelines.
No, and you can't exactly wish for that, can you?
No, but I mean, I totally agree with you, Alex. The amount of COVID testing that we've done in the past 12 months is just ridiculous.
Yeah, I think if you try and calculate the money of each test, how much it costs. Oh, I must be over $2,000 in tests.
I was counting at some point until I lost.
You have to pay for your tests.
Yeah, a few of them do. Luckily, with some of the media work I do, they get covered. But with a few of them to go out, I've had to pay for them, unfortunately.
Jesus, that's an expensive.
I tell you, the motorbike world side of things is it's not as glamorous sometimes as the 4-wheel side. So
some guys at the end of the F2 season end of F3 and F2 season got sent a bill for their COVID tests. Some of the drivers.
No, that's right. Actually, Oh, but I think the teams were paying for it.
Yeah, they're supposed to. They're supposed to, but some teams, I won't name names, some teams sent their drivers the bill for like the season's worth of testing.
Yeah, and I
That's
think
crazy.
the price was a little bit exaggerated by the sounds of it. No?
But yeah, it was many thousands.
Oh, gosh.
No, I was counting my tests at some point, and I lost count now. But I know I'm over 60 since like summer last year when it all started. Obviously, going away for the first race in Red Bull Ring.
And the thing is, it never gets better. Like every
No.
single time, it hurts just like the first time.
Yeah.
I
I thought they were getting better, and then the last one I had, the guy absolutely put it to the back of my head. So
yeah, proper job's worth.
yeah, it is rough, isn't it? Like they are bad, really bad.
You need to be charming to the person, and then they're just like, they'll take it easy on you.
Yeah.
So how was speaking about the racing? How was the first? I mean, I watched it obviously, so I know your results. But how was the first weekend? How was it with your new team? Goods and bad points, I guess.
Well, you know the boys at Dams well, Jake.
Yeah, is Damien your engineer?
Yep, Damien's my race engineer, and they're a good bunch of guys, good bunch of characters. Obviously, F2 this year has changed a bit. We have 3 race weekends, 3 races per weekend, and it's chaotic. Like every 5 minutes, there's like there's a twist, something. There's a safety car which ruins your strategy or something like that, and it almost makes qualifying irrelevant because you can win from the back. Like for example, in the second race, obviously I had an engine mechanical failure in the first race, had to start last for the second race, and at one point we were P2 and I couldn't really tell you why. We were just like, things worked out. We had a safety car which obviously favored the other strategy, but it was just all up and down. And also with the third race as well, we started P13, and at one moment we were leading, and it's all happening.
I was actually a little bit tired out just watching it because like normally there's just the 2 race, feature race and sprint race. First race you've got your pit stop. The second race is not boring, but it's it's not the pit stop strategy race that the first one is. But after 2 races, 2 sprint races on a Saturday, I couldn't tell you what had happened by the time you were starting the race, the third race. I'd lost track of who won what race, who was on the podium in what race, what the strategies were like, who was on what tyre compound. Because I mean, which was the race? Was it Joe in race 2 that tried to do the race on the soft tyre, the sprint race on the soft tyre?
Yeah, me and Joe.
That as well. Yeah, you tried that as well. Yeah, I remember looking going, well, that's not going to work, is it? And I think I even texted you to say, what the hell went on there? How did that tyre last?
Well, it's really odd actually. They brought a new hard tire for the season, and in theory it's a stiffer compound, but it also holds more temperature. So the thermal degradation is huge, especially at Bahrain when the track temperature is like 48 to 50 degrees. And so for whatever reason, the soft tire was probably eventually it would drop off, but for as long as we had rubber on the tire, the soft tire was just as good as the hard tire. So it was strange, but it's also what we learned in testing. And I was really surprised that only me and Joe went for it, because it was one of those things where, we'd proven that it works in testing, and I don't think anyone really had the balls to really, do it in the race, but it seemed to work.
Well, I was honestly, when I only turned on the race a bit like 2 minutes before the start of that second one. When I saw Joe and yourself on the soft tire, I was assuming you guys were doing a pit stop, because I haven't been at the track. I haven't been even asking you guys about testing because why would I? So I didn't know that it was because of the temperature reason. I assumed you were going to pit, and when you carried on, I was like, that's not going to work. Just watching.
Yeah, I was quite keen to do a pit stop actually, but it was like, obviously starting from the back in that race, you've got nothing to lose really.
Yeah.
And I was open to do anything. When you're in that situation, you're starting towards the back, you have nothing to lose. So, I mean, it's just a shame there was a safety car so close to the end, because everyone who started on the hards could then switch to the softs. If it wasn't for that, I wouldn't be surprised to be on the podium in that race, just because the hard tires were so just slow.
Yeah. And how was the
Yeah.
third race again? I can't remember who. I just remember Oscar's crash with Dan.
What happened in the third race? Oh, I was leading at one point. Yeah,
I'm
for a
glad you can
very
remember.
brief moment. Yeah, for a very brief moment, I was leading. It was, we started on the softs again. I think myself and I don't know, maybe 6 or 7 other people started on the softs, and I was the last one to box, and there was a safety car. Right.
I remember it now. Yeah.
So I boxed for the primes, and then the safety car came in at the end of that lap, so I had no time to get any temp into the tires, and it was chaos that first lap because there was a massive headwind down to the first corner, and everyone just came past me like I was standing still, if you remember well. But it is actually kind of fun because it's like you don't really know what's going to happen, and at the same time, if you manage everything well, manage your tires, you could just have a massive speed difference towards the end and just come through. So like it's never done.
Yeah, I just remember 2 guys I think got seriously blessed with the safety car in that last race. I think Bashir was one of them. Someone else came out in the lead after the pit stop, I think.
That was me, mate.
Was it you? You got blessed, yeah. It was you, yeah. You did get blessed. Apart from I didn't think about the tyre temp.
I was on the wrong tyres though, yeah.
Yeah, true. Because you gained time effectively, didn't you? Because everyone was calling around. Time. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Well, I think it's really good how unpredictable F2 is.
It's great to watch.
Oh yeah, I'd hate to drive in it.
Well, honestly, when I did that one race in Sochi then last year, I had no idea what was going on.
No.
I had 0, and that was that.
What did you think of that? The whole F2 concept, mate.
I was honestly a bit like, because I'm an F3 veteran, obviously. He's just sort of used to just F3. There's no pit stop. Everyone's on the same tire compound. The deg is, especially in the last few years, wasn't massive. So it was like you get where you are lap 1. It's like that's kind of it, especially if you're not on the track with DRS. So it was always like you knew exactly where you were, what you had to do. Because it was just a sprint. I know F2's a sprint as well, but yeah, when I started in that race in Sochi on the ultra soft, I think, and I was assuming that was going to fall off after 3 laps. So there I am protecting them like from the first corner, and lap 12 or 13 the race, I'm still on the tire, still doing my fastest lap, thinking what the hell's going on here. And then I come do my pit stop, come out, and I only see 1 car for the rest of the race. It was Robert, and I just followed him to the checkered flag. And I was just like, I finished 12th, which was a good result, really, in the HWA at the time. But I was like, I was in the race, I was like, I don't know really what happened. Like, I just finished 12th. I don't know how the other guys got ahead of me or how the other ones were behind me. It's just weird, I guess. But yeah, I mean, it's great to watch F2.
There's nothing worse than going too easy on your tires. Like it's very easy to go too hard, which everyone knows about, and the commentator will point out. But there's nothing worse than just taking it too easy and just losing lap time for nothing. Like those ultra softs in Sochi, for whatever reason, they were working really well. I remember that.
Well, we made the mistake in quali as well of not doing a second lap on them. Because I was doing all right after the first lap. I was in the top 10, and then I dropped, and then I selected reverse after that first lap. Fell back down a bit, but yeah. So how's it? Obviously, tyre deg this year seemed to be a bit better than last year, I would say. I know it's a bit different it's a thermal deg thing rather than a wear thing by the looks of it.
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult to say because we've only driven in Bahrain so far, which is the worst usually, but it's definitely not easy. I mean, if you're used to F3, it's a tough one because you have to take it easy, clearly. But I think when we go to some more normal tracks, or now we go to Monaco and Baku, they're not so normal, but maybe what's the next one after that? Not even sure. But when we go to the European tracks, it should be a bit more towards F3. It should come towards the rookies a wee bit, and the guys that push a bit too hard. But it's definitely not easy, mate. It's like it's a gamble every time. You
Yeah.
You win some, you lose some when it comes to tire deck.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was Oscar Piastri tweeted saying he did a faster race pace in the test in F3 the year before than he did in F2 in the race this year.
Yeah, also in Barcelona last year, I remember him in F3, he won the race, the sprint race, which was a faster time than the F2 sprint race. And it was like, God, that's
I
embarrassing.
mean, it sounds surprising. In a way, I'm actually not surprised on those kind of tracks, like a bit tight and twisty, higher speed, not as smooth.
And saying that, I remember in Paul Ricard when we were racing in F3 together, there was that, for whatever reason, there was massive deg in F3. Do you remember that? When you catapulted me.
Well, mate, we're not going to talk about it. Not going to talk about it.
I remember that.
Nah, mate, no, not talking about it. It's like, it's my low point. I don't crash. I don't do it. I just don't make mistakes like that.
Jake, so, I would have been proud of that one. That was it. Yeah.
Well, if we could laugh at it now, but if it come off, it would have been fucking, fantastic.
It would have been amazing.
Yeah, it would have, if it come off, which it didn't. I mean,
you just hit the wrong Prema car, mate. If you had it the other one, I would have given you a high five. But
no, I don't know how. I still don't know what. Well, I know what I did wrong, but you were just as like on it as I was though. I assume I was racing somebody that was going to back out of it on the outside.
Nah, mate, no chance.
No,
I couldn't even see you, mate.
No, I couldn't. Well, I think we both lost. I lost you behind Robert at the time. Anyway, we're getting a bit off topic here, but yeah, just so everyone knows the listing, I took out Marcus in that first race in Paul Ricard 2019. Yeah, 2019.
Yeah, 2019.
And I remember I was on pole. I was rapid that weekend, and I went off into the lead from Jayan for about 5 seconds, I think 4 or 5 seconds, and then I just the red car slowly caught me up.
Yeah, I mean, like also in the race afterwards, and on the Sunday race, I don't know why, but we were so fast. Like I stalled at the beginning of the Sunday race.
Yeah, I remember that.
And then came through to 5th or something ridiculous like that.
Wow.
And I couldn't even tell you why. Like we were just flying. I remember thinking when I was coming through the fields, I was thinking like, I'm so quick right now. I cannot imagine where my teammates are, because they obviously didn't stall at the beginning, so they're probably 1 and 2. Terrible feeling, but yeah.
Sometimes there's so many times where I think it doesn't really make sense in Pirelli world, like why you put pace or why you didn't. I mean, that same particular weekend, I remember I did a practice time on used hard tires that wasn't really that far off what I did in quali for the pole on brand new mediums. And it's just like, I couldn't tell you why. I couldn't tell you why. I only gained like 2 tenths or something.
I know, mate. You'd have to tell me about that. I mean, I completely understand.
Yeah, I think it's just I guess for people listening or watching, it's like the Pirellis are so temperature sensitive, and especially until midway through last year, there was absolute 0 sensors on the car, wasn't there, for the team or driver to sort of be able to say or feel what's happening, whether you're too low, too high. The window's so small that almost they feel like almost the same, whether you're too cold or too hot. Sometimes you just end up getting no grip. But then if you get it in the window, like especially Prema seem very good at doing more consistently, you just gain half a second, like snap your fingers.
Yeah, well, it makes me nostalgic about the karting days. Like back in back in karting, you just, no matter what temperature the track was or the tires, whatever, you'd still be there or thereabouts.
Yeah.
And then even you could probably improve on old tires. You didn't need to bang on a set of new tires every time if you wanted to go quicker.
No. I mean, when I went out on Tuesday, it was like you just go straight out the pits, wheel spin and slide and scrub as much as you can just to get any kind of temperature into it. And then you just go faster and faster and faster and faster every single lap, because you just get better. You get better, but the tires stay with you. You just don't have that in Pirelli world.
I was speaking to Joe about this the other day, Guan Yu Zhu, and he's like, it's probably not my story to tell, but you know what, whatever.
Yeah, come on.
He's saying that his first test in Fiorano in F4, he forgot to warm up the tires on new tires, and he literally went out the box and from the first corner was pushing like normal, because that's what you do in karting.
Yeah,
like, you just go out the box full blast and just survive.
Yeah.
And he reckons he went out the box on new tire and just spun out straight away, turn one. That's it, in the gravel.
But have you never like lost it on new tires coming out of a pit lane or something? You're not part of that group, that crew.
Wasn't it Callum that did that in Silverstone? Wasn't it?
I didn't know about Callum's. I know I have.
Oh no, where have you done it?
Snetterton, Formula 4, straight out of the pits in the wall on the right hand side. Broke the
No.
Was it a diff or top wishbone or something like that? But yeah, new tires. End of the day, loved it.
Straight out and across.
I think I might have upshifted or something at the wrong point. I don't know. I just got a massive snap and went in on the right. It's so embarrassing.
Probably done it before. Let me have a think.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, actually, after the pit stop in Spa last year in F2, I actually went into the pit wall on the exit. Luckily, no one saw it.
And like the hairpin of the pit exit.
Yeah, literally right at the box.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. That's quite easy to do, I think.
Hit the pit limit, or like turn the pit limiter off, lit up the rears and just went straight into the pit wall, but didn't damage anything. Nothing. It was fine, and kept on going.
Well, no one knew about it until you said it just now.
Yeah, but
yeah. I mean, we just mentioned karting there, but you were part of the Tony Kart factory team, weren't you, in karting, the sort of all conquering machine?
Yeah, it was pretty surreal when I started racing with them at the beginning of 2015, because I'm like a full-on race fan. I've always been just a fan at heart, really. And I remember at school, in primary school, we'd always have to make little diagrams and stuff for our desks and lockers and everything. And I'd always have Marco Ardigo on there, who was
the legend.
He was eventually my teammate. And then also Baz Lammers, who I raced against many times. And just a whole bunch of these guys that I ended up knowing personally when I got into karting in Europe. So yeah, when I first arrived over here, it was just it was pretty crazy. And obviously, Jake, Ollie Oakes quite well.
Yeah.
He was the one that sort of he was a talent scout for Tony Kart at the time.
Yeah.
Back in 2014, and I'd won a few races in Euromax and in America and Australia and stuff, and he invited me to come and do the World Championships with him and Tony Kart, or Cosmic, which was I remember getting the email from Ollie, and I was like, you can't imagine it. I was bouncing off the walls, and yeah, one thing led to another, and we became really good friends, and he invited me to live with him and his girlfriend Becca in Oxford the following year and race for Tony Kart. And obviously I had to try and convince my family to let me go, which
well, how old have you been?
I was 14. Would have been 14 and a half,
and living in New Zealand at the time.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So 14-year-old trying to convince your parents to let you go, all the way over to Europe to live with some guy they've never met, I guess. Yeah,
well, obviously we sort of had a plan for what I would be doing that season, which was Australian Formula 4, because you can race single seaters quite young in our side of the world, on our side of the world. So we had a rough plan, and then suddenly Ollie came into the mix, and you obviously know how convincing Ollie is. It was like, if we say no to this, we're passing up an incredible opportunity.
Yeah.
And there's a bunch of great New Zealand racing drivers like Nick Cassidy and Mitch Evans and Richie Stanaway and all these guys who went into single seaters really young, and they didn't bother with the karting in Europe. And so my dad was sort of using that as leverage to try and convince me to to do the normal route. But at the same time, I wanted to make footsteps of my own. And yeah, racing for Tony Card, I mean, speaks for itself, really. It's just, it's amazing, historic, really. And eventually my dad said, okay, you can go for the first 6 months and do correspondence, because it was obviously my first year of high school as well. So yeah, and actually we got to tell my mum that I was going to Europe.
What, until you'd already gone?
No, literally, like me and my dad we'd organized everything with Ollie over the New Year's break, and then we got back from the New Year's break and we're like, geez, have we told your mum? And I was like, oh no, I forgot, haven't said anything to her. And so I went back down to Christchurch where she lives, and obviously had to pack my bags and everything, and said to her that, yeah, I'm going to go live in Europe for the next 6 months. And she was like, oh, okay, cool. I don't think she really thought about it at the time. And then the next morning she was in tears, and she was like, I've just realized that you're never going to live with me again. Which is partially true.
Oh God.
And yeah, so that's how it happened. And yeah, I've never really gone back, never turned back, really.
What was it? What was like your reaction to coming over to Europe? Like, did you find like much of a difference?
Well, obviously there's a big cultural difference. New Zealanders are super laid back, very relaxed. In fact, this was one of the things that Ollie used to
He'd bed you in, wouldn't he, Ollie?
Oh man. He was busting my balls because I was like super laid back Kiwi, probably took the piss a bit too much, you know.
Yeah.
And at the time, George was racing for him in F3 with High Tech, and you know George, obviously he's like the opposite to a laid back Kiwi in a good way, of course. And he's like, you got to be more like George, you know, you have to look at what George is doing, and you have to, you know, try and effectively do what he's doing. So he'd make me go to his sim sessions, listen to the way he communicated with the engineers, and etc. And eventually I had to get rid of my Kiwiness, because what Ollie actually said, I remember point blank, he said, if you want to get to F1, you have to be more like George. I was like,
Ollie makes me laugh because he's always, if you're the boy, if you're the boy at the time, you have to be like whoever that is at the time. So it was George. then I think, I don't know if I was, but 2017 when I was there the year after, he just loved me to bits. And then I think Yuri came along at some point as well in F3. So it was like, yeah, Palou. So it's always changing these favorite guys.
Christoph, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. John before that.
Yeah, you know, he was actually right, because there was no way that I could be properly successful being too nice, you know. I mean, New Zealanders are naturally really nice people and very friendly, but in motorsport you just get trampled on if you're too nice. So
yeah,
you know, he did have a point, and he had, you know, he had my best interests. You know, obviously he wanted me to succeed, so I trusted him, and I think now I find it difficult when I go back to New Zealand, because it is like, wow, you know, people are just so relaxed here. Nothing's an issue in New Zealand.
A bit removed,
which is
maybe.
sometimes, yeah, it's a bit difficult to adjust sometimes.
Yeah.
And together with that, my accent is just a complete mess. I mean,
actually, I'd say you were probably somewhere down that way right now, but I reckon it's changed, your accent, since you've been over here.
Oh man, I mean, my mates take the piss out of me like you have no idea.
Yeah. Well, I get that even from being from Birmingham, so don't worry about that.
Yeah.
So how was it? Because obviously, if Ollie was looking after you, let's say, and looking out for the best of you, how did you kind of come about going to be with Ferrari on the academy, and I guess, you know, moving away from Ollie and his sort of guidance, so to speak?
Well,
Or did he help you get there?
actually, I was at Hockenheim 2016 at the end of my second year in Tony Kart, and I was there just watching a race as sort of a guest with High Tech, and I think you were there racing with
I was with Carlin.
Carlin.
Yeah, I was. Yeah,
I remember that actually. I remember
I was flying.
Yeah.
I think I broke that record that weekend. I couldn't believe it. I just
yeah, I remember you
weekends.
kicked Lando's ass on the first race. I remember that.
I mean, I don't like to tell people, but you know, Lando was my teammate that weekend. I'll get
Yeah, mate, I remember.
See, hopefully, if we ever got big enough on this podcast, Lando will come on and sort of back me up on this. But yeah, we're not good. I don't want to talk about it right now because I'll be on all the Lando fans will just be in the comment if this gets out.
No, but I remember you walking around the paddock and you look like a bodybuilder back then.
Yeah, that was huge. Mate, I mean, we've talked about it with other guests, but I was training with a guy called Jerry Convey. I don't know if you know of him, but he's now the sort of Mercedes trainer in Formula E as well, and he was with DTM for a long time. And I was, you know, for better of a word, stacked for a single seater driver. I was way too top heavy, and everyone used to say it as well. Like, you need to. I never used to see it either. I just thought I was really like, you know, like that was good. That was, you know, to look strong and stuff like that. But that's not a racing driver build, I don't think.
No, I remember someone saying, "Oh, it's good for the sponsors," something along the lines of this.
Yeah, that's good for the Instagram post.
The political correct way of saying it.
Yeah. But anyway, back to what happened that weekend. There was Joe who was racing for Prema, I think.
Yeah.
Maybe Motorpark, I don't know. And he was obviously in the Ferrari Academy back in the day, and Massimo Rivola was the manager of the FDA. And I remember in the hospitality, he was grabbing his lunch, and I was there as well on my own, well, with Tav, one of Ollie's mates. And and I just grabbed my lunch and went and sat with Massimo and started chatting to him. And he'd obviously heard about me because I'd been racing in Tony Kart that season, and FDA was doing sort of a partnership with them for the following year. And he sort of said to me, you know, what are you doing next year? And I told him what my plans were, which were to do Formula Renault with our race at the time, which would have been a pretty good program had we eventually done it, I'm sure.
Yeah, didn't you go to do a race with them in Nürburgring and like absolutely did mega or something like that?
Yeah, it was well, we've done a fair bit of testing, to be fair. It's not like I just rocked up and raced, but we did a race in Nürburgring. Lando was there, Jahan was there, the guy Max Deforney was there. He was quick that year in Formula Renault, and I finished fourth, which was good. And yeah, I was massively prepared for that race because we'd done, you know, probably more running in Formula Renault that year than we had in KZ, which was the program that I was doing in karting. And anyway, Massimo said to me, you know, what are you doing next year? I said this and that, and he said, you know, why don't you come to Fiorano next month? We're doing a scouting with a bunch of young drivers, see how you get on. And I said that'd be great, you know.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
I just told him exactly what he wanted to hear in a way, which was to race for Prema, which was the intended program, and in Formula 4. And yeah, I went to do that scouting, and I was the quickest by like 100th to a guy called Simone Cunati.
Oh, you gotta be careful saying
that. Yeah, it was close though. I remember.
Terrible.
It was myself, him, Lorenzo Colombo, Enzo Fittipaldi was there, your ex-teammate.
Oh, I love Enzo.
Little Enzo.
Yeah.
And yeah, the rest is history.
Yeah, and then you went and won the championship.
Yeah,
but it wasn't as easy. I was hoping I didn't get that wrong then.
Well, I won the Italian championship. I lost the German one by a couple points to Vips.
Ah, yeah, you had Yuri's teammate, didn't you?
But yeah, that was so much fun, that 2017 season.
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, it's leaving Ollie's circle wasn't great, because I enjoyed being with Ollie, and you know how Ollie is. He's really good on the human side, and we're still good mates today. But yeah, sometimes I miss that the humor that Ollie brings to the table.
Yeah, he is good, Ollie. What he does, okay. I mean, he's obviously took Nikita into F1 now, so he knows what he's doing. High tech, successful team as well in its own right. So I can imagine that was hard. But then, yeah, I mean, obviously, we touched on this a little bit with Callum, obviously racing for Prema, but from the outside, Prema just seems so like dominating it everywhere it goes. Anything it touches turns to gold, for a race car speak. And how is that sort of on the inside with them? Because a lot of people, like I say, would look on the outside and just go, well, just do they have some magic dust, and anyone that just can finance the seat just wins automatically? Or is it, it's not, I know it's not like that, but how is it? You've got to work hard, I guess, with them.
Yeah, for sure. It seems a lot more simple when you're in there. Having left Prema and gone to ART and now Dams, obviously I've never been with a bad team. I've been quite privileged. All three of those teams have huge histories, but with Prema, I'm not sure if it's because I was in the lower formulas with them or not, but it just seemed very simple all the time. The goals were very simple. As a driver, you didn't ever think about roll balance or the boring stuff. It was just your job was to beat your teammate, and that's it. Which is quite cool, I guess, because it's sort of you don't overthink things that have nothing to do with your performance. But at the same time, Prema is very relaxed. Sometimes I'd wonder when we arrived at the track, and I remember F3 2019 when we were down the road, really.
Yeah,
we were very, very quick.
Oh, yeah, I can say that again.
But we'd arrived to the track, and I swear we were the most relaxed. Our little engineering squad, we were the most relaxed guys in the entire paddock. And I sometimes would rock up and just be down the road in free practice and would be like, not really sure what we're doing so well. And in fact, one time I asked, it was actually after that race in Paul Ricard when I came through the field, I asked one of the engineers, I was like, man, like, what are we doing that is so good? I want to know, because I want to make sure it happens again.
Yeah.
And I remember the bloke snapped at me and he's like, are you an engineer? Is it your job to engineer the car? And I was like, no, I'm a driver. And he's like, exactly. So just drive the car. And I was like, okay. That's the last time I
was asking myself the same question, but more about why you were so far ahead of me.
Yeah, I mean, for sure it's very relaxed. And to be honest with you, mate, it doesn't seem like there's any secrets, especially in that F3 team. It just seems like all the time, yeah, we did the simple things right, and we didn't take too many risks. We didn't change the car too much from weekend to weekend. The car was quite consistent, so you could sort of get on the pace quite quickly at the beginning of each race weekend. So it's, yeah, I mean, you'd probably have to ask one of the engineers, because it was I'm not the guy to ask on that side.
Do you think it's like sort of an Italian thing though? Like, because I was with in Super, I had 4 races in World Supersport. My first time on a proper 600, and it was with an Italian team, a guy called Livio Lorini, and the atmosphere in the team was just so welcoming and friendly and relaxed that it almost felt like the results and the hard work you were doing were coming easier because of the atmosphere in there. So, like, could it be like sort of a culture thing?
Like a family atmosphere?
Well, definitely Prema is a family. There's a family atmosphere there, because there's obviously Rene's dad, who's the boss of the F4 team and F3 regional, and then Angelina and Rene run the run the F2 and the F3 International, but I don't really know, to be honest. I mean, it is very relaxed, but in saying that, there's, they're not the only relaxed team in the paddock. It just seems like, I think the culture is obviously a winning one. Whenever they finish second, they're not satisfied at all, when potentially other teams would be. And I think that makes a big difference more than anything else. It's just the expectation to win races instead of finish P2 and P3. So
yeah, I mean, at some point as well, when you're constantly winning, you can constantly attract the best drivers with the best money, let's say, sponsors or whatever, and you always got somebody rapid in the car, which helps as well, I guess. It keeps that momentum going all the time. I mean, the opposite applies for some teams when they have, I don't want to say choose the wrong driver, but they have a bad year because the driver doesn't nail it, and then they struggle to get a good driver the year after, and it's a slippery slope after that.
Well, the margins are so small in F2 and F3, really, that if you, for example, actually, I won't use that example, but
no, go on.
No. It's you're right. If one of the teams has a good previous 4 or 5 years, and then they sign a guy who pays a ridiculous amount of money, it then sort of brings doubt into everyone's mind who wants to go there in the future, because they've had one bad season with this guy. So yeah, you are right, because the best drivers always seem to go to Prema in a way, and that helps when you have 3 good drivers in the same team. You're always pushing each other to improve. You always have good data to learn from, as opposed to, I mean, you've always been sort of the lead driver in your F3 career, especially last year.
Well, I mean, since 2016, it's just been good. I've only gone to places where who would have me, basically, because I didn't have the money.
So if you don't have a fast teammate, then you don't know where to improve. That makes sense.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I mean, I'm very confident in my own ability, but even I will admit that at some point, in the last 2 years when I was with HWA, that I wouldn't have been driving as well as I could have done in a particular session for whatever reason, or particular sector or corner or whatever, which would have helped me in the next session. So it does help. And I mean, towards the end of last year, Enzo got on it actually quite well. And I actually had a little bit of data from him. But yeah, I mean, when you're rookies and the team isn't exactly on it every session, it's easy to fall away like that.
So go on, tell me, how was it being teammates with Enzo?
Enzo's brilliant. He's so like, I mean, don't get me wrong, I've seen him wound up and angry plenty of times in that last year, but he's so enthusiastic, like just about anything. I remember we were in Budapest and we had dinner and we got in the lift to go back up just to go to bed. And with Dave, Jack's, Jack Doohan's manager, and he just gets in the lift and he just says something like, "Oh, Dave, how about that food, man?" The littlest things are so amazing to him, and it's brilliant to be around. You just end up laughing all the time. And the best thing is he doesn't have a clue why you're laughing.
Well, I know Enzo very well. We obviously did a season together in F4, and then we've always been together in the FDA for the past couple of years. And it's hilarious when you share a room with him on a training camp.
Yeah.
Like there's nothing more entertaining, because he gets his phone up and he's FaceTiming all his mates in America, and he's a wee womanizer, to be fair to him, and he's got all of his his American girls.
Oh no.
No, it's so funny, mate. When you're sharing a hotel room with him, it's like, how do you know this person? How do you know her? And he's like, mate, I'm Enzo.
I love him to bits. He's brilliant. It's a shame he's not doing F3 again this year. Actually, now he's gone, because he's left Ferrari now, hasn't he, as well?
Yeah, it's a bit of a shame actually, because he's the most entertaining guy here. Like,
yeah. He honestly made that, especially the first half hour last year. I didn't score a point really until round 4 or something, and it was the only thing that kept me going was him.
Yeah, he's good fun.
Yeah, we'll get him on at some point. Actually, asked him.
Sure.
We have asked him, but he's so all over the place.
Oh mate, you should get me on there with him next time when he finally agrees. We should do a big FDA reunion. Get Callum on as well. And...
Yeah, yeah, we'll do that. I'll definitely do that. So yeah, I mean, like you say, you were with Dams now, and I think it's fair to say that last year probably didn't go how you wanted it to. But I'm not expecting you to release any kind of secrets or whatever, but it seems like you look happier in the car with Dams than you were last year at ART. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, definitely. Well, obviously, yeah, last year didn't really go to plan. But yeah, this year in Dams it does seem very different. The culture is different for sure. Not saying that ART was bad, because you don't win as many championships as they have by coincidence. So, but yeah, in Dams they're very open to change. I mean, if for whatever reason I'm not satisfied with something, and then they're definitely not afraid to change something, which is a blessing and a curse at the same time, because you have to be very accurate on the feedback that you're giving. But I do feel trusted in Dams. Obviously, you know them well, and they're a good bunch of guys. They're very, very hungry, very intense. They always want to improve. As I said about Prema, they're not satisfied with an average result, which neither am I, So it's good to be with people who do want to succeed, and they're willing to put in the hours of, finding the small details, because the details are massively important in F2.
Yeah.
When all the teams are at the level that they are,
Well, you don't get the track time either, do you? I mean, I had a year with ART as well, and I did win in their car. But I could probably back you up to say that it's from my experience that in that car, it seems like that's the car, and you got to get on with it basically, even if you don't like it or it doesn't suit you. And to a point, you could say that you have to adapt to be a great racing driver, and I would agree. But when you've got so little time on track, which when I had them in F3, you have a 45-minute practice session and straight into quali. You don't have the data, you don't have the sensors to know what to change with your driving style all the time, and it's just constantly chasing. You can't settle with the car. That starting setup from pre-practice seems so important in these championships. I wonder whether that's helping you this year.
Well, I understand what you're saying. I mean, it's when you have a decent baseline setup like ART obviously do, it's always a risk altering it. But obviously, if it means helping the driver, then I think that you should probably do it. But it sort of, again, brings me back to the karting days, when, for example, in Tony karts, if we had understeer, for example, we wouldn't make a change on the chassis. We'd literally change the chassis and, bring a new one out the truck and be like, right, here it is. So, it did make me miss the days when you could just fully reinvent the wheel if something wasn't working,
Yeah. I think it comes back to track time, doesn't it? I mean, in karting, you can go and change that chassis and go out on track and test it, whereas you can't exactly get change the car upside down in GP in F3 or F2 and then get another practice session because you don't have one.
Yeah, exactly. It's like also in F1, it's the same situation. I mean, back in the day, the test driver, Callum's role, for example, would be one of the busiest roles in the paddock because you'd always be traveling and testing new things on the car, and now they obviously have to bring the costs down a wee bit. But at the same time, when we do testing, we have tire limitations. We only have 8 sets of tires for a 3-day test, which is probably a little bit on the limits, especially when in F1, I think they'll easily do 10 sets in a day. So, I mean, everything is just designed to sort of make the guy or the team that has the best baseline set up to succeed in the end.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I do, from the way that weekends are formatted, I absolutely do understand from a team's point of view why they would be reluctant to change the setting just for one car, let's say, or one driver. Because from their point of view, it's too much of a risk for them not to necessarily look bad, but they see they've got more chance of getting a result for the team by just leaving it, if they know something works. But yeah, not everyone drives the same. And like we said, I think where you start the weekends in F3 and F2 is so important. You can't be changing the car between F3 and between free practice and quali upside down. So, I think
I've heard of some people are very, very confident to do that. I've seen teams in the paddock that just don't hesitate at all. But then there's others that I think it's more the English teams that are quite outgoing.
I can imagine that. I can imagine that. I can imagine a team like Carlin being very happy to help the driver, right, if they were struggling, let's say. But yeah, it's difficult. I mean, it's why you see so many drivers, change teams and stay in the same championship and just fly, or go the other way, vice versa, because not because they've forgotten. Yeah.
Unfortunately, as well, there's last year in F2, the engine situation wasn't as good as it could have been. Like some guys were flying on the straights when others weren't, and I'll be honest and say that we definitely weren't flying on the straight last year, and Callum as well. To be fair, he wasn't the best on the straight, and this sort of thing makes a huge difference, especially when you have a 1 hour race and you're sort of fighting for tenths of a second every lap. 2 tenths per lap on engine is going to be, it could be upwards of 3 seconds.
Yeah, exactly. No, I get that. That's frustrating. I mean, F3 is quite a lot better for that. It's just that sort of stuff. But in F2, I've heard plenty of stories like that. So how was? I mean, just sort of, I want to touch on towards the end of this, but obviously, I think you had your first taste of F1 at the start of the year in Fiorano. So how was that? I mean, that must have been just amazing to say you've tested a Formula One car, especially Ferrari.
It was a special day. It's pretty incredible, really. Your first push lap in a Formula One car, and I was speaking to Max Future about this because he obviously tested the Renault at Barcelona. I think it was 2 years ago. And I remember him telling me that the first push lap was just insane. And then, not many people get to experience it. That very first push in a Formula One car, it's chaotic because you don't even get a warm-up lap. You literally go out push directly. And that first push lap is like, it is a bit of a blur because it just happens so quickly and you don't have much time to sort of build up to it. But in saying that, it was in a way easier than I was expecting, just because of how perfect the car is in comparison to F2 and F3. I mean, the simple things like the gear shifting and the drivability and everything was just very, very smooth, very easy. And it sort of does exactly what you want to do. Like if you want to get to the apex at that moment, you get to the apex then, because the car sort of does exactly what you want it to do. So that was the first thing that sort of the first thing I noticed really was just how perfect everything worked. And then again, doing the test for Ferrari at Fiorano is pretty crazy. Again, I'm a racing fan, so even arriving into Fiorano, using the same locker room as all the greats have used before, and even that particular day, it was sort of a full dress rehearsal for the race team. So there was all the engineers there, and that even literally put up another awning just for the engineers. So it was like, a very, very decent amount of people were there for a one car. And
for your first go.
Yeah, for my first go, it was like, wow. I had to go over all the simple things, make sure I didn't embarrass myself. Like, just remind me how to turn the engine on again. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
it was a special day.
I mean, even from the sentimental side, I can imagine or can't imagine, but putting on the suit must have been pretty cool. Like that's putting on the red suit. You know, it's like so iconic, isn't it? The color, just even regardless of the name, it's like that's the red car, the red team. You know, and I have affiliations elsewhere, but that's still pretty cool, I would imagine.
Yeah, you're right. It is pretty crazy, and as also with that, there's just so many people there to make your life easy, even if it's just for a one-day test. You know, I didn't see my helmets, for example, until 30 seconds before I jumped in the car. You know, it's just like a way getting, I don't know what they're doing with it, but it just sort of arrived just when I needed it. And you know, radio kits and everything, I didn't even have to think about it until I was getting into the car. So it's just like, it is special. And as I say, I am just a full race fan. So at the time, I had to sort of just block that out and just do my job, which is, you know, to drive the car as fast as possible without doing anything silly. And then afterwards, you know, I sort of said that I can allow myself to think about how cool it is after I've done the test. But whilst I'm doing it, it's best just to treat it like another day in F2, for example, and do the best job that I can.
Yeah, I mean, Ferrari itself, I mean, I've seen it, never driven it, but it looks quite small for a Formula One car, to be honest.
Especially the modern ones.
Yeah, is it the cars almost strike me as being too quick for that kind of place.
Yeah, well, the car, firstly, to drive your first F1 car, what Carlos said to me was when he first drove F1, it was 2012, I think, 2013, one of those years. And he said when he went from World Series to that car, it was like bizarre, the speed difference. And then he said, I cannot imagine going from F2 to a F1 car of today, because they're obviously so much quicker than what they were 7 years ago, or 9 years ago. And yeah, and also Fiorano is not the biggest place, like you just pointed out. It's sort of like
the walls are there.
Yeah, it's sort of like Monaco with a bit more margin, maybe.
Yeah.
But
fans looking over the wall, waiting for the lockup.
Yeah, but in saying that, it's also the perfect test track. Like, there's a lot of slow speed corners. There's some high speed stuff as well. And you know, for example, Michael Schumacher's won a bunch of championships, having done a million days of testing there. And and it's also inside the city. Like when I left the track and went to go get some dinner, they were like, "Oh yeah, I heard you driving today. Good job." Yeah, it's like, yes.
I mean, before lockdown kind of kicked in, I went for dinner with you and Callum in Maranello. Before, what was it? One of the Italian races, I can't remember. But yeah, it was just amazing. Like that place you went to, it's like that place is just Ferrari. It's like that's what it's there for. Everyone in the whole town, you know, whether it's the local corner shop or the petrol station, it strikes me as that's their life. It's Ferrari. You know, everything it happens as a satellite around that, I can imagine. Everyone knows who you are.
I remember the first time I came to Maranello, and it was like we arrived there and we were driving to Maranello, obviously, and we're like, well, where is it? You know, like says we're really close, and then boom, it hits you. It's like from sort of in the middle of nowhere, and then suddenly you're in Ferrari land. Where
that's the way I think about it as well when I arrived there, Ferrari land.
That's definitely cool. And even living here, I mean, it's not like living in London for sure, but there's mountains here, and obviously I love my cycling, and training is good. Got the gym just around the corner at the factory, so it's perfect for me really, because I'm very fitness orientated and I don't get into trouble here, so it's perfect.
Nah, never. Right, I mean, just before we finish, I also want to ask you like quick 1-2 minute answer on what's your expectation for this season. I mean, obviously, I guess to go for the title, right?
Yeah, so for sure I want to fight for the title. but you know, that's what everyone says.
Yeah.
I'd rather win the championship than win races. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. I mean, it make more difference for your career for sure.
Yeah, I mean, like there's another Prema philosophy is, you know, we've won enough races in our lives not to get fully excited on winning races, but just take the points and win the championship. That's what gets us going.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it, actually, isn't it? And maybe an F1 seat off the back of it. You never know.
Yeah, that's not for me to decide. I'd rather not think about it, to be honest.
Yeah, there's no point for you to think about that. It'd just be cool. It's for me to think about, I guess, asking you.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, cool.
No, for sure. But you know, thank you, Marcus, for coming on. It's been cool to hear about your journey from New Zealand all the way to Maranello and Formula 2. So make sure you go and give Marcus a follow on Instagram, Twitter, anything you can find him on. He's at Marcus Armstrong on Instagram. But that's been another episode of the HYM podcast. Make sure you leave a comment, a rating down below, a subscribe on YouTube. It really helps us out here. So we'll be back same time next week, Jake.
Yeah, probably with someone else who was too bored to say no to us.
Yeah, someone else who's stuck in lockdown, and we hope Nick can be back with us. But yeah, thanks guys for listening, and we'll catch you soon.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers.
Thank you.